Okay, video log. Today I'm feeling like decent, but also not decent, if that makes sense. Oh god, I don't even know. Like, it's hard to explain. Basically, I've been like slowly pulling and tearing away from the internet in every possibility. And trying to get like more immersed into life, I guess. I'm kind of like over the idea of like virality and like social media content. Like, not that I don't think I'll ever do it again, but it's just kind of exhausting and like I don't know. I had like a period of time where I was doing decently well with it and like it felt like it was going somewhere. And then I just like my life was just too complicated for it. Like, I just did not have enough stability to like wake up and like record anything. And then also like video editing and just like ideas were just so like daunting. And then it's also hard because like the internet is constantly changing. Like, there is no, at least from what I've seen, there's like no consistency. There's like no, like, I don't know. And also there's just been such like an uproar of content, and it's just like hard to even know like what to record or when to record it or like what to make. It's so, I don't even know sometimes. And I honestly like hate the idea of being like internet famous. um like, I hate it. I hate it so much. And also my use of social media like has gotten out of hand and has gotten like very complicated. And I think that even when I was posting and when I was getting like numbers, it was just not landing in the faces of the right people. Like, it just was not. So I'm kind of like, okay, so either I gotta wait till some people fucking die or just not post at all. Because I was just like so overwhelmed and I could not do it. And it was like anything I would post ever at all was just like, I fucking, like, everybody I knew was just starting to like make up all these fucking lies and crazy shit about me. Like, I started like getting like texts from like family members being like, hey, I saw your video, blah blah blah, what is this? And I was just like, okay, like, what what do you have to do with that? Like, are you jealous? Do you want to be in the video? Like, what's going on? And it was just like kind of getting to a point where it was just kind of ridiculous. I was just like, what is wrong with you guys? You know what I mean? Like, I was being very blunt on the internet, and honestly, it was getting to a point where I was just airing bitches out. I was just airing bitches out. And the more I started doing that, the more I was like, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Cause it was just like not a vibe, and I think it was just strange experience. And also, it was like the people that I knew, like, I don't know if I want to say they wanted to be around me because of it, but like, I wasn't the type of person to like my laptop. Yeah, it just like started annoying me a lot, and honestly just like really pissing me off that like I would just wake up to some bullshit because people didn't like that I was posting online. And it was getting to a point where it was like, okay guys, like, let's be for real. Let's be for real. Like, I'm not, let's be so fucking for real, cuz I was just getting so pissed by the fact that like my dad would like invite me out to lunch and it was just going to be a conversation about my TikTok or like my YouTube or some shit, or like they're like basing off what they know about me from like what I was posting online. And it's like, okay, if you if your level of getting to know me has to be through what I post online, like, there's something more there. There's something more that maybe you need to look into, because I don't care. I don't care. So literally, like, they were like, okay, if you're gonna keep doing this, literally kill yourself. And I was like, oh, okay, okay, like, okay. They literally were like, no, we fucking hate you now because you keep posting online. So slay. Yeah, it was just getting to the point where I was just like, this is harassment. You guys are harassing me. Please stop. Please stop. Like, you're harassing me. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, they were like, oh my god, you're posting about us. You're posting private information about our family. Like, did I tell people your social security? I'm talking about my life. I'm talking about my life. And if you had to be a shitty person in my life, and I'm talking about the fact that you were a shitty person in my life, like, sorry. Sorry. Like, actually, what the fuck? What the fuck? It was just getting out of hand, and it was honestly just really annoying. And then also, like, sometimes having like a lot of eyes on you, I think, especially for like where I was living, and then also like how I was moving, it was just making me anxious. It was just making me way too anxious, because you just can't know who has or hasn't seen your face. Like, even though it was just for a little bit, like, it was just like terrifying. And not a lot of people where I was at, like, even do make content. And if they do make content, like, I've I've never met anybody who's like actually like consistently doing that and like is actually trying to like make something of that. Like, there have been a few people like newly in my life, but those, I don't know, it's just like really difficult and really strange when you're like trying to make friends and like have decent relationships, and like behind it there's like this subtle knowing or subtle like anxiety that like this person has probably stalked your entire page. Like, I've literally had somebody say that to me, like, that they, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just used to get things like that, and I think it was like weird because like it started to feel like people were like kind of like glorifying me in like this weird way, and I was just like, I wish I was the type of person who like enjoyed that, but I don't. um I just don't. So I was like, I pushed out like a shit ton. I probably had like 6,000 pages. Not really, but like a few. And then the more pages I started making, the like less numbers I was getting. And so I was just like, okay, well, that's fine. That's literally fine. So yeah, I just like, I don't enjoy doing it as much at all, like, anymore. And editing is just really frustrating. Like, it is so frustrating. I don't even know how to begin. Like, even just like a 30-second clip, like, even, especially now, because like there's like Instagram reels, and there's like all these people who are like, here's what you need to do if you want to push your content. Follow this 30-step process and buy my course for $500. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Like, I'm not doing that. And then also, it's like there's such a need to like have like high quality. Like, it's almost like you have to have your shit recorded in like such a specific way, and not just a specific way, but like consistently in that way, or else just sayonara. Like, just don't even think about it. And that's just frustrating. Like, there has to be something so like tantalizing and like unique and different about you to even like see anything from it. And I just hate that. I just hate that. Like, I'm literally on the floor. I'm literally on the floor right now. This is a fucking mattress. Um, yeah. It's so fucking weird. But I've been like trying to like say that I was gonna do um a story time about what the fuck just happened, but like, because I like have pulled away from it so much, and every time I post I just feel like it's literally gonna go nowhere. So I'm like, okay, like what's the point of posting? I'm just like leaving a trail for like weirdo fucks to find and judge me, and then it's like not even gonna do anything. And so that's just been like pissing me off like a lot. And also I think sometimes it's hard because I'm a real living person. Like I change a lot, and I think I started to like develop this weird relationship with sort of like how I present on the internet versus like how I am in real life, and like it just made me like way too hypercritical and aware of myself and like everything that I was doing. Um and I think it's difficult too because I have like so many different ways that I express myself, but lately I feel like I've just been like the most me I've ever been, and sitting in front of a camera like I can't be bothered to like pretend or like fake being anything or some like I just can't pretend to be like something I'm not. And I think that just comes with like age and just like fatigue maybe, I don't know. But yeah, basically like even when I was younger, like 8 or 6 or 7, probably way too young to be recording and posting videos online, but like, I remember like even in that space and time like I wanted to do that, and I like was stopped from doing that, which in hindsight was probably a good thing, but maybe also not because I could have been like multi-rich famous by now, like thanks I guess. um but that's just like frustrating I guess. But yeah, the story time was basically gonna be sort of about, I'm trying to like mentally keep something as like the pinnacle focus so that I don't stop talking because I feel like I just start talking in circles. So I guess I'm gonna like kind of keep it to like living situations, toxicity, and just like crazy shit. Um and then social media on top of that. So I think I wanted to like start, I think at some point I wanted to be like an IG model, like I wanted to be like an IG influencer. So like when COVID hit, I was like really, really, really hell bent on like having like perfect selfies and like perfect pictures, and I was like, at least compared to most of the people that I know, like how my page was and like the amount of engagement I was getting in that space and time, like I guess it was like pretty okay, you know, but it was mostly, in my eyes, it was mostly just people that I knew and like followers and friends and comments amassed from just different like high schools and middle schools I went to, and just friends that I had through school. So it wasn't like in my head that big of a deal. But I think it was like getting to me because at some point, obviously, I was like questioning like my gender identity and stuff, and I just like felt gross and icky every time I got a comment because it was like every time I posted, I knew exactly what to expect. Like, okay, 40 comments, 200 likes. It was just like I knew exactly what it was going to be, and it was just the same thing every time, every time, every time, every time. And I was like liking, responding, and I was just getting caught in this cycle of like making sure that I was the prettiest person in the whole fucking world and just appearing online to be this like fashion guru, but then also like in real life I had like zilch confidence. I like did not like anything about myself. And my home life was like depressing. Like I was like starting to realize that sort of just like my upbringing and sort of the chaos of like my household and familiar members was just like not good for me. So I think I was like interested at that point in moving out. And I was like 16. 16. Um, and I was like, okay, well, I'm probably gonna move out, so I need to start like actually thinking about my life because it was my sophomore year of high school, and I was just getting tired of it. So I think I was like really heavy on Snapchat. I was really heavy on Snapchat. Like I was across the board. And on TikTok, I think like I was only doing like TikTok dances, like just dumb shit. Like I wasn't even doing anything serious. And um, so yeah, at this point, I was like, like I really need to like focus in on something that actually matters. So I think I just slowed down on posting, but on Snap, I was like going fucking crazy. Like I don't even know what I was doing on that app. Like it was just so stupid. But I was mostly just doing like comedic stuff. From time to time, I have a moment where I just glam the fuck up, and I was just addicted to like the praise and like the messages and like everything that I was getting at that space and time. And I think when I was like graduating high school, I just didn't have the focus or like the determination to even like try to do that, because I had to make sure I was going to graduate, because I really flunked my freshman year, so I spent the rest of high school having to like catch up for that. And I think like during graduation, that's when they like were like, hey, you need these credits, you need blah 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 blah. So I was like, oh, you kind of right. So I kind of focused in, I did that, and I graduated. And then I started going to college, and once I started going to college, that's when I was like, okay, I can kind of come back to posting and doing all this stuff. So Snapchat kind of died down because I was just like, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with being a hot mess on an app where literally anyone and their mom can see me. It feels a little more private, but Snapchat is actually more public than you think. Is way too public. So I just kind of stopped at Snap for a sec, and then I started using TikTok. And when I started using TikTok, I was like mostly doing like fashion, humor stuff. But then I kind of like realized that like I wanted to like make more art and like make more music. So I started posting like content about like music and art, and just like still kind of keeping it like comedy and light, but then I was also doing like fashion related things. So with that, I think like people were kind of drawn to that in that space and time. And at that point, like my living situation was kind of like a little more easy, because I turned 18, and so I didn't have to like deal with like custody and stuff, of like moving back and forth between houses. So that was kind of cool. Um, but again, real person, real life, still depressed. Going to college was a nightmare. It was a nightmare that I will never return to. I made like decently cool friends, but like I was like meeting people that either like were really focused in high school, or in high school going into college, and like had their like whole 4 year plan set for it, and just didn't have the time to like mess around the way I was messing around, because I really didn't care. Like I would show up on campus just to be on campus, and if I wasn't on campus, I was doing God knows what, God knows where. Like I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember. So that like eventually was not good, because at some point, obviously, hey, you have grades. Money is involved. So my very, very traditional African father was like, what's this? I was like, oh, the semester's ending. So he was like, just so you know, if you don't go to college, I'm kicking you out. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not anxiety inducing. So that just put me into crippling depression. So I was just crippled. I was just crippled for months. And so at some point I was like, you know what? Since this is the end of semester, I'm just gonna crank out as much as I can. I did not get a single credit, maybe like one or two. No, just one. Or two, maybe, I don't know. But like it was bad. Like even like for the things that I love to do, like writing, sociology, like music, like I was failing those classes because I was like depressed. And in that time I just was like involved with somebody who was just not somebody I should be involved with, and I was spending like all of my time not the ant on my lip all of my time and all of my energy like trying to like please this person, and it was just amidst everything else that I personally had going on. It was just not cute. It was just not cute. So I had to dial that down, and kind of just look at like the year going forward, because I'm like, okay, I can't go to this school that I was just going to, because like who the fuck would continue at a school that they just failed at, and who the fuck would pay for me to go to that school? So I was like, I know I don't want to take out loans because I had to for that year because nobody was gonna pay it. So I was like, okay, community college it is. So when I started going to community college, this is when I really locked the fuck in with TikTok and Instagram. Um, so at this point, I was more interested in like building my real life more than like my educational life, I guess. And I just kind of had like the freedom to do so. Like I started just like literally going out, and I never did that before, but I was just having fun. Like, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? And I wanted to like try to like boost my like energy levels and sort of like, I don't know, my overall happiness by having a social life. Thinking that maybe that would help me with my focus in school. And for some time it did. But I think like the stress and the chronic stress of college is just so like bad for me to where even if I'm doing something lighter and I'm doing something easier, by like 2/3 of the way in, I'm looking at the end of it and I'm like, oh my god, like it just keeps getting harder. And I don't know how people can see that school's getting harder and just do more work to get better. But I have like a threshold to that shit. Like if I have to like do more than something, I'm just frazzled and dazzled, and I was burnt out by the end of that. Like by the first year of college, I was so burnt out that I could not see myself ever doing that again. I was like, I can't. So of course, my dad was like, okay, well, this is clearly beginning to become a pattern. So he was just being shit to me. So of course, I'm still 18. I don't have to deal with custody. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go live with my mom. So I kind of just slowly started like tracking my stuff over to my mom's house, and she was just kind of like being there for me and like listening and like having those convos with me, kind of just like spilling all the tea about like their divorce and all this shit. And even though I wasn't physically being forced to be one place or another, I was still kind of caught in that like back and forth sort of dynamic that was just honestly and always has been very toxic for me. So, excuse me. So, this is when I was like, okay, I'm not going to college next year, and I just know that for a fact. So, being at my dad's house is honestly just not going to be an option. So, after my second semester of college ended, I was like not there, like at all. I would maybe come by once in a while, say hi, blah 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 blah, grab a few things, take a shower, and then leave. And then at some point, my dad was just like, "If you keep doing this, like, I don't know what to tell you." So at some point, I just had to say fuck it, and like I stormed the house and I just like moved all my shit out, and that was it. I never went back again for a very long time. And so I ended up having everything I owned at my mom's house. And then eventually things there got very serious and very ugly. So I stopped going to school and I just started working. And as soon as I started working, like things just switched up on me. Like in a
It's
way,
8 o'clock.
that like I could have never predicted. Like as soon as my mom felt like she had me, she was like, if you go to your dad's, you're not allowed to be here. Oh, if you talk to your dad, you're not allowed to be here. So now I was like, okay, well my dad just basically like, dropped me. And now my mom is here like I'm dropping you too. So I'm like, so y'all did all this for what? Y'all fought over me for what? So I'm like, okay, clearly I really gotta dip. So I was in full crunch mode, still trying to make content, still trying to push stuff. And at this point, I got maybe a few viral videos, and I was like excited about that, but I couldn't be as committed and dialed in as I would have liked to because like homelessness. So I remember at this point in time, like I was trying to make connections like in the place that I wanted to live or could live. And I ended up making a friend with this guy, and he ended up becoming my boyfriend. But then that got really messy very fast by the time I moved out. We weren't living together. I had my own place, thank God. But like it was, can't even talk about that. That's a lawsuit. But literally, it was just so confusing. So by the time that I was living on my own, it was fucking hard. It was difficult. Nobody knew where I lived. maybe like for a few months, and then like of course they just could not handle the fact that I was leaving them, and so they all wanted to come see me. They all wanted me to come through for dinner, come through for Thanksgiving, come through for blah blah blah, blase blah. But then subtly they were like, "So when you're going back to school?" And I was like, "Guys, slow down, slow down. So what have you been doing?" And then all of a sudden, because I was living on my own outside, I was on the streets. I said, "What?" And then this is when I really was like, "Oh, y'all mentally unstable," because the shit that I was hearing from other people about me was just so crazy. So I was like, "Okay, so this is how we're rocking now." So literally, I just started airing bitches out. I was like, "So y'all want to talk shit about me, talking about blase blah?" I said, "I got blase blah too." So I started talking about everything, everything, bitch. I went down the list. I said everything. And then bitches were eating it up. They were eating it up. So here I am, a young adult, fighting with grown ass motherfuckers who are pushing 50. And I was just like, wait a minute. This is beneath me. This is beneath me. So, anyways, I had interesting roommates, to say the least. I wouldn't say I was perfect in it, but something happened to where we were just like, okay, this lease is about to end, like, right now, like earlier than it was supposed to. So that did not give me enough time to figure out where the fuck I was gonna live after this, and I did not have a safety net. I literally jumped the gun and was just like, I have to do this right now. So that was messy, and obviously I couldn't, like, I had friends, but nobody I knew, and I was honestly too prideful to be like, hey friend, like, I'm about to be unhoused, help. And I just turned to like my family like immediately. And I remember in this space and time I was asking for advice from people. I was like, guys, what do I do? Like, this is crazy. And they were just like, oh, like, you can distance yourself, but just remember they're still your family. And I was like, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe they have turned a new leaf. No, no. My mom had like an extended house that was honestly a Section 8 household, and she's not even supposed to legally own it. But she was like, hey, if you can figure out how to pay rent in this house and get roommates and do whatever you need to do, you have it. So I was like literally in the process of having my shit there and like trying to get it figured out. And she was like, actually, you know what? I'm miserable and sad, so I'm just gonna crash. I'm just gonna come through whenever I want because I own this house. So I was like, hey, we don't have a good relationship. Maybe you shouldn't do this. And she was just like, no. So I was like, okay. And then she ended up throwing all of my shit out into the street, in front of my dad's house. And obviously my dad was like, what the fuck? What's wrong with your mom? And he was like, you're actually a problem. Get out. So I was like, oh, okay. So he flew me out to Phoenix, and I was with my grandma, his mom, and I barely knew her for real. Like, she would come through a few times, but like just enough for her to only like be like, I love you, hi, how's it going, blah blah blah. But like behind the scenes, like they were working on some master plan to like make me whatever they wanted me to be. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. So at this point, I had been in so many conversations and arguments with people that I was just like over it. I was just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. So I ended up having to leave that house, and I got in an altercation with my grandma, and it was not pretty. Um, yeah, at all. So I ended up reaching out to one of my extended cousins who honestly went through like similar things that I went through with my family, which is crazy. Like, how do you do that twice and not think that you're a problem? So she understood. She was like, yeah, come through. So now I'm like literally in a different state again, and I have nothing. Like, I have like basic necessities, but like literally as I was leaving, I was like, hey, like, am I get my stuff? And like my dad was like giving me like this stoic fucking speech about how when you get thrown out, you have to let go of shit. And I was like, no, bitch, like, give me what's mine. Like, what are you talking about? So that was crazy. But he was just so like removed from the situation that I was just like astonished. I was just like, never in my life did I think that this would happen, but hey, here we are, whatever. Um, so yeah, that kind of just brings me here, and now like through like my usage of like the internet and like social media, like how does one pretend that life is okay and like showable when like the span of 2 to 3 years has just been like that? You know what I mean? Um, so yeah. So that was just honestly pretty intense and scary. And I'm praying that from here on out, like, I'd never have to be involved in stuff like that. Cause, like, I don't know. It was just, like, pretty fucking nuts. And in hindsight, I'm sure one day, you know, people are gonna realize that, like, what happened wasn't okay and wasn't fair. Cause as soon as I turned 18, they were just throwing sticks and stones at me. Like, it did not fucking matter at all. Um, and they still are, even though I'm like not even around them somehow. So that's cool, I guess. Um, yeah, I think I've just like stopped trying to understand like why they do what they do and just notice the patterns. Like it's not just me. Like they've done it to like a billion other people. So I don't know what the fuck. Like you know what I mean? So I'm trying just like to move past it and just like take it as just a sign of the past and really try to hone in on like what it is that I want out of life. But it kind of makes me afraid of being successful because like a lot of that was because I was doing stuff and a lot of it was through jealousy and a lot of it was like just trying to beat me down to like stop me from going anywhere. Like it was just really, really, really toxic. And I personally am not going to call them my family because family doesn't do that. People who love you don't do that to you, like, at all. Like, there are things that, like, my mother said and did to me that, like, you know, like, I can't, like, you can't even, like, imagine that, like, anybody, even in general, would have the stomach to do that to somebody. Um, so I can't even say too much, honestly, about that. And that goes for my dad too. That goes for anyone and everybody. Because I was not around. I was not around for a very long time, and I honestly wish I kept it that way. Because probably would have avoided this, but it was ironically kind of a blessing in disguise. And I'm kind of cool with that. Okay, but I get scared about talking like about the details of it all. But that was just sort of like an overarching idea of like what happened. But it's so like overwhelming and so like jam packed. Like I probably lived like 15 years in like 2 years. And honestly I don't even know what to say about it. Like some of it is honestly just really sad. Like excuse me. Like not to say that I'm sad about it now, but it's just like it was just sad. It was just sad that any of that had to happen. And I think amidst it, like I was honestly like going through a lot, just like in my personal life, and just having a very hard time with like understanding who my friends were and like trying to get this sense of like homage and like safety within myself because like for the longest time I never like felt that. And a lot of people who were like supposed to like protect me and kind of like be there for me in the way that I needed just like weren't. And again, like it's hard for me to be like, oh, like XYZ did 1 2 3 because I did shit too, but it was all like in reaction to what they were doing. Um, I don't really know. So I try to avoid talking about the nitty gritty things just because like I could say something specific that somebody did and they could also say something specific that I did and we could all just take it out of context and be like, fuck everybody. So I just feel like that part doesn't really matter. But I do want to talk about sort of like what I want going forward. I think personally, like after just watching my whole entire life crumble before my eyes, it's kind of hard to be like, I still have goals and aspirations, because what the fuck was that? But I do. Um, so I don't know. I think I kind of have a firm understanding of like what I do, and honestly, I'm very, very persistent and blatant about what I do. I think my use of social media has become a lot more intentional in that way, that I do mostly just post about my art and I kind of just let it be there, instead of like trying to use all of this algorithm based reels and content and like all this shit, just because it was like so trapping. Like I was like genuinely having panic attacks and nightmares and sleep paralysis and like all this shit. And then also, oh my god, people in real life just staring at you, not fun. I don't even know how to describe how that feels. Like, not fun. It kind of started out like with people my age, but then it became like literally just out in the fucking street. Like I'm just on a random fucking street in a random place, and like I can tell that somebody is just like dialed in on me, and it could be for a million reasons. I don't know, and frankly I don't care, but it just does not feel good. Like it just does not feel good. Like if you see me, just say hi. Maybe don't stare. It's not a good feeling. And I don't like that. Um Also, like, I'm growing like as a person, and I think like one thing that I felt that I had to do was like maintain a specific like tonality or like expression, and like that's become like very difficult for me, because um I think like with my background and sort of just like how I was raised, like I went to French immersion growing up, so like I spoke French like in most, if not all, of my younger years. And so English at some point was a very second language to me. Like I did not know how to respond to certain things. Like my older brother spoke English mostly, so he would like teach me things and like slang and all that, and I just was like so confused, because I was like in a very traditional French school. Like not only were they teaching you French, but they were immersing you into the French culture. So I kind of had that ingrained in me. And I remember like people used to tell me that I had an accent, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm so confused. And then at some point I realized like, oh shit, like because of French speaking and kind of being around like francophone people, like I do have that underlying texture to my voice, I guess. So that's cool. Um but it's, something I don't really notice and think about at all. And it was just very strange because I grew up in like the inner cities of where I lived, and then over time kind of migrated out into the suburbs, but I always had that connection and that like authenticity to where I grew up. Um so I kind of just like ended up returning to that, and then through being in that environment, I dropped a lot of like the voices and like attitudes that like I would fake in order to fit in where I didn't grow up. So that just kind of happened, and then I think with that came a whole bunch of personality changes, and I kind of was like going back to the version of me that didn't get to prosper. And through becoming that person in my own journey away from my family or any of the new bullshit that happened that I just didn't care about, I kind of became somebody that they didn't want me to be. Because had I stayed there, I was going to go through a very predictable life. And it's funny because I imagine that had I gone through it like that, I probably would have been here right now regardless. So it's just really funny, and sometimes I get this feeling that like it's my fault that things ended up this way. It's my fault that I ended up here doing what I'm doing and kind of having to deal with what I'm dealing with now. But then I also try to like have a bit of self-compassion for myself and be like, a lot of this wasn't on me. A lot of this wasn't chosen by me. A lot of this wasn't created by me, and I'm honestly just here now because unfortunately a lot of people in my life failed me in that way. Um, and I really, really do believe that. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, if I had to sit here on the internet and explain every minute detail about it, I'd be here talking for 30 hours. Like, it's too much. It's way too much. Um, I've thought about like trying to gear towards like more of like um, a French audience at some points. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I've thought about like just recording videos in French and then just leaving it at that and just having sort of that sort of presentation. But I think because all of my friends like are American, it's just like I'd be alienating so many people. But also it's harder to talk French if it's not like conversationally, and I've been away from it for so long to where like I could sit here and talk, but then it also is anxiety inducing because I don't know like a lot of things that like people excuse me my age who speak French would know, and some of it is quite honestly pretty broken, and it's pretty good, but there's just I'd have to be in that environment again to sort of catch back up to that. Um, mais si je voulais parler français, je peux parler, mais je parle vraiment doucement. Je prends mon temps. Il y a un peu des mots que je sais pas. Parfois, quand je parle, je suis like nervous. I'm just like nervous parce que je suis allée à mon école francophone jusqu'à le cinquième année. Et après ça, je voulais prendre français encore pendant mon sixième année. Mais ma père m'a dit que je peux pas faire ça parce que ça va être trop facile. Donc, j'ai pris espagnol, espagnol jusqu'à mon dixième année. Donc, j'ai appris ça et c'était, it was a bit confusing because Spanish and French, les deux, c'est, you know, they're similar. So sometimes when I want to speak French, I end up like wanting to say things in Spanish. And so my brain just like gets confused. So like when I hear Spanish, I hear it fluently. But I don't speak it fluently, but I'm very comprehensive. And then same thing with French. Mais les Français, mais non. Pendant 7 ans, ils parlent trop vite. Et c'est pas juste ça. Il y a des mots et du slang que moi j'écoute, je sais même pas qu'est-ce qu'il dit. Je sais même pas. J'ai essayé d'avoir des amies françaises en ligne, mais c'est pas la même chose. Et franchement, c'est un peu dégoûtant parce que les gars en ligne, ils sont des gars qui, je sais pas, they don't have your best interest at heart. And if you honestly want to make like a good friend, somebody who will let you have a stay in some part of France for a few months, it's not the route to go. So I don't recommend that if you are a native French speaker looking to re-immerse yourself back into French speaking. Also, like, I don't know, it just feels so like excuse me, annoying and like gross to make content sometimes because I feel like I have to like I think like one thing that like happens in the back of my brain a lot is just like stereotypes and like feeling like I have to be a certain way. And representation too, because there aren't like a lot of like black female YouTubers. Like there are a few, but like most of the ones that do have a platform and do consistently get numbers are very exuberant to say the least, which is fine. You know, I can be that way too, but I think like I'm so like you have to catch me in the moment. Like I can't be bothered to like fake anything. If I'm not getting paid to do it, like, I don't know, like, I have like fucking congestion in my nose right now or something, and it's been so annoying. But yeah, I also just don't physically feel the best. Honestly, I've been pretty like overworked and tired and fatigued for a few months. And that's just been really exhausting. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know like how to exist on a camera anymore. I also just feel really like awkward in front of cameras. Um, which is something I've been trying to break out of, but I just like can't lately. I've thought about working up to save up for like streaming or something, because I find that I do a lot of funny shit like when I'm not recording myself, and then I think back like, imagine if I was recording that, or like I tried to like make a reenactment of what happened, and then I'm just like, no, like that just doesn't hit the same. So I've thought about streaming a little bit, um and that could be something, I guess. Like, I don't know. um I try not to think about it too much, but yeah, it's just like really frustrating trying to understand like what the fuck the internet wants. And I don't know, it's just it's hard. Like, it's just really hard to know or tell. And I've kind of got an idea for like what it caters to and like what people in general want to see, but like again, it's like cold. It's fucking cold. Oh my god. That just like hit me out of nowhere. But yeah, it's like hard to tell and hard to know and just exhausting, and I'm just fucking exhausted. So yeah.